It's Free Talk Live. Dial toll free to join us here. If you want, you can bring up anything you want. That happens to be on your mind. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. By the way, Bitcoin.com, since we're talking about Bitcoin, they happen to be a sponsor, longtime sponsor here on Free Talk Live. It's a great site to visit to get all kinds of information about Bitcoin, not just starting. Maybe you're just getting started in Bitcoin. You can take their Bitcoin Academy. It's free. Go to Bitcoin.com to do that. They can also help you choose a Bitcoin wallet, buy some Bitcoin, and show you where you can spend Bitcoin. Plus, you can read the latest news over on their news site at news.bitcoin.com, and they have a Bitcoin forum that allows you to engage with the community. Go to Bitcoin.com to learn more. Again, that's Bitcoin.com. We're talking about poor people in the world becoming harder to find. Now, we're talking about, the term was what, extreme poverty?
Yeah, extreme poverty, people living on less than $2 a day. That's pretty poor.
So there's still relative poverty. I mean, they're still poor compared to rich, but the poor of today are much less so than 150 years ago, or 50
and
or 100
much better
years
off
ago.
than that time frame.
In the United States, the poverty is based on sort of a mean. Now, what that means is that there's a wage that's half the people make more than that, and half people.
That's the median, not the mean.
All right, whatever. The median.
I don't know how many times we got to go through this.
Statistical averages are hardy. There's 3 of them at least.
And that means the poverty rate's based on that. Well, it shouldn't be. It should be based on, can you live on this rate, or what really define? They need a better definition of poverty than what somebody else makes.
A living wage.
I don't know what that means, and it's very difficult to know. And when you ask people, basically they just want to make more money than they currently make and work less. And it's poverty in the United States is a joke compared to what real poverty looks like. There are very few
poverty in Nigeria.
Very few people in the United States living in shacks with dirt floors. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
With no running water or sanitation or anything like that.
Right. That's what poverty looks like, people.
Yeah.
Are you going?
Would that be extreme poverty?
Yeah. Are you going to a well with a container,
a bucket,
to get some water every day? Yeah. If you're
someone
not,
would say, you have a well? I got to walk all the way down to the river.
That's right. Well, some people do. Some people choose to live this way. They want to see what it's like to rough it for a while. At my house, we homesteaded for about 10 years. We grew our own pigs. We had a big garden. We heated with wood. I still heat with wood. And did a bunch of things. And that was to see what this was like. And I can tell you, it's hard to live that way, but it takes a lot of preparation. You got to split all your wood ahead of time. You can't do that. You can't just wait. So anyway, going on here, most of the people who are 40% of these people reside in India and Nigeria, according to this. The poorest, and a similar trend in Nigeria can be seen since the millennium.
The trend being people coming out of poverty.
Right. Domestic income per capita has increased by over 800%.
Wow. In 25 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
From
that's huge.
$270.
Huge as a percentage, but if you're talking about extreme poverty being $2 a day, that's still
$20. Yeah. From $270 to over $2,450. That's as much work. There is much work can be done, but this level of progress shows that even the poorest countries, the speed of economic growth is encouraging. In order to help the poorest, consider the impact of free market capitalism and what it's had on the last 200 years in alleviating extreme poverty. The Industrial Revolution turned the once impoverished Western countries into abundant societies. The new age of globalization, which started around 1980, saw the developing world enter the global economy and resulted in the largest escape from poverty ever recorded. This is something that the late Father Warshawski, who they mentioned earlier, would have been eager to celebrate. And I'm with the Foundation for Economic Education on this. Socialism, which seems to be the opposite of capitalism, so I'm told, I don't really know, but basically statism doesn't have a solution for poverty.
No.
It doesn't.
Tax the rich.
That's all it's got. And then what do they do with the taxes? They keep it for themselves. They don't it never trickles down.
There's people that get checks.
Yeah, but they don't end up any moving up the economic ladder.
No, that's true.
They're trapped in poverty for the rest of their lives. Well, it's just enough to be trapped.
Even with the minimum wage increase, one of the results they had in Seattle where people just worked less hours
Yeah,
and
they were-
enjoyed more of their leisure time, but had the same income, just with higher hourly pay?
Well, they also weren't asked to come on longer either. They didn't want to be paid. They weren't getting paid overtime because of these things. So some people who wanted more hours couldn't get it.
Right.
So, so sure, maybe some of them were enjoying their leisure time. Some of them weren't. They just had leisure time because they couldn't go to work. Others lost jobs because places shut down.
True.
And when you raise the minimum wage in a city, then what you'll find is that certain services run to the outskirts of the city, so they don't have to pay the minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
When some of the people living on the outskirts run into the city to get the higher rate.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
If they can
find the job.
And then they go into competition for other people.
Because usually jobs get cut once the minimum wage increases.
Right.
So
and if you tax the rich heavily enough in the United States, you will find that they move elsewhere.
Right.
Just like they have in New York.
They can afford to.
Yeah. And now we did read an article not too long ago that the rich were moving into California.
How bizarre was that?
Yeah, so strange that's occurring. But I guess it's just because that's the lifestyle they want to have. I can't tell you entirely. If they got enough money for it, then they're up to it. But at some point or another, if you tax them heavily enough, the rich will just go ahead, turn tail, and go someplace else.
Let's go to the phones here. I don't know if you got more to the story, Mark.
No, that's
but,
it.
Okay. John is in Texas watching us on YouTube. Go ahead, John.
Hello. Hey, I wanted to ask about colonialism and how that all plays a role in what you're talking about.
Can we define colonialism? Can somebody define that for me?
Yeah, I would like to hear some people's opinions, and then I'll give my own. Or I could give my own definition. And
go ahead with your definition. I mean, just not intimately familiar with the term.
Colonialism,
it's like the British Empire taking over India.
That's where any other empire goes into another people's land and take over the indigenous and what's it called? Either wipe out the indigenous or just take advantage of the resources and make the indigenous people work for the colonial system. The colonialists are the ones who made America.
So the American colonies would be a classic example of colonialism. Okay.
Or the phrase "the sun never sets" on the British Empire.
And so how's the question related to the topic at hand, which is to say poor people being pulled out of poverty by the marketplace and free markets?
I'm saying that you're speaking about this colonial system being a way out, and I'm saying that...
No, I don't think we talked about a colonial system being the way out. I think, Mark, what you said was freedom...
The fact that you're relying on money and this way of transfer of money, like, literally that's what's making a unbalance of equivalent exchanges. The way we exchange money for work, it's very unequal, and that's due to the way we go about money and this whole bit system thing. I don't think that's gonna make things more equal. It's just making people with technology.
Well, I don't care about things being equal. Equality doesn't matter to me at all. Poverty matters to me. Mm-hmm. A bunch of poor people who are free to be poor, sitting around and trading chickens for rocks or whatever. If they want to stay that way, they're welcome to do it. The problem is that in order to keep a system of barter, which is really your only option besides a money system, the only way to keep a system of barter is to force your neighbor not to be able to trade for money. And when somebody uses force, I don't care whether they came from Britain, the United States, or Nigeria. That person, if they initiate force, is wrong. So how would you propose to have, I'll tell you, I'm not for imperialism. I'm against it. But we didn't have this sort of conscious capitalism that is popular today going on 200 years ago. So we can only look at what happened in history. We can compare places that didn't get colonialized versus places that did, and in many cases...
They're still under oppression, though, by colonialism, because of the fact that the whole world is colonialized.
Right. Well, there's places that you could look at, outposts. You could look at outposts that weren't colonialized.
Where? Like which places are you talking about?
Madagascar didn't have a lot of colonialization going on. There's plenty of islands around in the Pacific that didn't happen in. There's places in Southeast Asia that it didn't occur in. You can look at Inuits going on in North America.
Wait, so you're saying there is colonialism had no effect on Madagascar?
No, I didn't say no effect. I said, I'm talking about less of an effect.
Oh, less of it.
Right. Well, you could look at it greater and lesser, but many
now that
times.
we're talking about effects and colonialism, like the whole fact, what do you do when two people are living on a land and one person decides to pollute the river, and when you're living downstream from the river?
Stand by, John.
That's a different question.
I'm not sure what colonialism has to do. Must have missed the link between colonialism and pulling people out of poverty. I thought we were saying that it was the free
He's
market.
equating it with capitalism.
More coming up here. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're here on this live Sunday edition. We'll take your calls and your thoughts about what you want. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Tonight, it's Ian,
Richie Rich,
and Mark.
Mark, you were sharing with us a story from the Foundation for Economic Education, fee.org.
Yep.
They're talking about the just stunning lifting out of extreme poverty that has happened in just the last 25 years.
Right.
A significant portion of the world's population that had been considered extremely poor is no longer in that category. And of course, as this happens, other people are lifted out of their, areas of wealth. Everybody's getting wealthier as the world creates more wealth. Guess what? Because wealth is more than just money. Wealth is, basically, and it's hard to really kind of give it an easy definition, but there's more than just money. It's also the things that you have, the abilities that you have, the ability that you might have to take some time off from work without having to work. That shows some level of wealth. The fact that you might have air conditioning and heating and ice, some of the things that we take for granted in a lot of the Western world is an incredibly wealthy thing to be able to have access to.
and on an individual basis as well, because everyone has a different value system on what they think brings themselves wealth.
Well, and then we got on the line with John. See, Mark, your story was kind of like about the numbers and how they've changed over not just the last 25 years, but over a couple hundred years, basically.
Right, going from 94% of the world population being in extreme poverty in 1820 to 1990, 35% being in, and then in 2015, only 10%.
Right. And then John in Texas, who is still on the line with us, watching us on YouTube, he came in with this question about colonialism, and I wasn't sure if you had mentioned colonialism during your story. I don't think you did.
You won't find me making a defense of colonialism, generally.
Right, because we're libertarians, so we're against the idea of forcing your way of life on another person. But John, you brought that issue up of colonialism, and I'm not really sure what your statement was. Could you kind of recap that for me, John?
I was basically just saying like the whole mindset of saying that like they're poor because of the way they choose to live, and by the Western society or whoever it may be providing them with these services and like more convenient living situations is supposedly better for them. And if you like are paying attention to modern day problems and just like the way the world is now, there's a lot of environmental and like social economical things that are going on because of like the system that we're trying to say is beneficial for other people when we have no right to go into the jungles. The jungles are being cut down still, and they're using those for farms, and they're saying, hey, this is better for everybody if we cut down the jungles.
Let me see if I can clarify, because I think I'm starting to grasp your claim, John. I have a question real quick. Can there be an objective definition of extreme poverty?
Can you simplify that a little bit?
Sure. According to the article, extreme poverty are those people living on less than roughly $2 a day.
So, I mean, you're talking about money. That money, like our whole money system is right. All like we owe so much money, and before America was even started, we owed so much money in debt to other countries.
Hold on, I don't know. Whoa! I don't owe any country or anybody, for that matter, any amount of money. I am not in debt. How did you end up owing these other countries money?
You're saying that
Well, I'm saying even the people in the jungle, right? Can you say that they're in extreme poverty?
Wait, I want to answer I want to answer the first question. Are you saying that it's not written in history that the United States was already in debt and owed was before the United States was even established. They already
Well,
owed
okay,
England
so there's a difference
money.
between the U.S. government and the debt that those people hold versus your own personal debt. I don't
We're
accept.
U.S. citizens. What are you talking about?
I still think we're
The
getting
United
off track.
States government may claim you as its serf. That doesn't make it so.
Yeah, that's just a fantasy.
Yeah, but you're saying that, but and then
if a
you
bunch of
wanna say,
old
hey,
fools
well,
in Washington,
all right.
D.C. want to spend a bunch of money that
Let's
they've
back
stolen.
this off just a second because the entire premise is flawed. Andrew Jackson, the 9th president of the United States, I believe his number was number 9, paid off all the debt. It was a zero balance at that point. So no. None of the debt that was held over from the United States in its creation has come on to today.
But even
the
if
Civil
it was,
War has.
Even if it was, I don't bear any responsibility for what politicians have decided to do.
I still think that's off track to the point he's trying to make, and I want to.
Sure, but I want to make it clear that he's
that is
wrong
a
about
good
the
point.
idea that we are all in debt because of what these politicians are doing. I
That's your
don't
point?
hold any of that debt. And I'm not in debt
That-
because
I
of what
think-
Bill
I think
Clinton
that's-
or Bush, George Bush or Barack Obama or Donald Trump have done. I have no responsibility for it, and it doesn't matter if they consider me a citizen or not. It's not my responsibility. I didn't spend it.
So you agree that the things they do, you have no say in what they do.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we don't have any say in what they do.
Yeah,
They're
what
a
would you
criminal
possibly?
gang.
Yeah, what would you be able to do?
It's a criminal enterprise that lets you, cast a ballot
And
once every
so
4
why
years.
are you talking about money? Why are you talking about like if the money system? Hello.
I
We're right
wasn't
here.
trying to talk about the money system. I was the article had an
You're saying
objective.
that people are less poor now, and you're talking about that because the fact that they're living on $2,
the equivalent
day.
of $2 a day.
No,
as
he
an
asked
objective
you a
measure.
question. The question was, can we define extreme poverty? And then you began to get evasive.
Yeah, we can define the extreme poverty, but I don't think defining it with $2 with
How do you define it?
the
Okay.
way
That's
how you
fine.
define it. It
Dead
has to
kids?
do with-
Because I can tell you the infant mortality rate has gone way down in the world.
I'm just trying to get some
Uh,
clarity. Like, if you don't want to use the definition in the article, that's fine. But we have to find a starting
No,
point on how we
yeah.
pull people out of poverty. And if we're saying extreme
Well,
poverty is not $2 a day, seriously, how would you define it? And then we can go from there.
I think poverty has to do. We have to like take into consideration the land also because you want to talk about helping these other countries, and here in America ourselves, we're like
I don't really
polluting
care.
the
I
land.
just want a definition.
You don't care.
No, at
What
this
are you
point, I
talking
mean, we
about?
can
He
work our
asked
way
you
there.
to define extreme poverty. You don't want to use a dollar value. So
I'm telling you, extreme poverty has to do with the land that you're living on. If the
So is
land
it less
that you're
than an
living on
acre
is
of
all
land?
messed up,
no doubt it's going to
the
be a
land
lot
that you're
harder to
living
live
on-
on a desert than it would in a lush forest, I suspect. Is that what you're getting at?
I'm saying even the lush forests that were being lived on were being pushed off because it has to do with mineral rights. It goes back to colonialism. People where there's good land and there's good stuff, the people who are living there are going to get pushed off. And people
That's
are
a
acting
true
like
statement,
that's not happening.
right? Like if poor
No.
people have land that is rich in minerals, they are likely to be pushed off. In many cases, if we're talking about the Amazon, for instance, it's not Americans that are pushing it off. Americans may or Westerners may be driving the push because they're willing to pay, but it's not them that are doing it.
Wouldn't they be
It's-
doing it with the government?
It's it's
Tangent?
armed
We still
gangs
haven't-
basically that are driving people
But isn't
off.
that the government, an armed
well,
gang?
essentially,
yeah, it is the government through the
De facto
through the
government.
Gangs,
It's-
they're paying the gangs with guns.
right.
And
Well,
drugs.
here would be my premise. The United States government and every other government on the planet is the most successful armed gang in a given geographic area. So I'm
Well,
not
yeah, that's true, but
okay.
So are
you're not
okay?
gonna let.
I'm going to try
I'm
to
going to
take a
let
step
you.
back.
I just don't know. I don't know where you're going. What do you want me to
I'm
say
trying
here?
to- I'm-
White
no, no,
people
I'm
are
trying
the
to- all
problem.
I'm saying,
If we could
No,
just
we
get
have to
rid of the
distinguish-
white people.
I didn't hear him say anything
I
about
never said
race.
that.
Well, he's saying colonialism.
that.
It's a buzzword.
I'm saying how we haven't even distinguished what makes somebody poor or rich or not because I said
I
it
know.
has nothing to do with money.
That's why I'm
I'm just trying to
frustrated.
distinguish
Well, so
that.
so
You're-
change
no,
it for
you're the
money.
one over
If
here
you're going to
talking about
define it
all
as
this other
land,
stuff. I'm saying the fact that it has determined. Well, right when I started saying one of the key factors of what makes somebody rich or not is the land that they live on. He started going off onto all of that.
okay. Well, let's backtrack then and go there then. So what makes someone impoverished is the quality of the land that they live on.
Yeah, and when people are being pushed off of their own lands, what can you do about it?
Okay. Well, that's an entirely different question than the colonialism
Because
question.
you're talking about getting people out of poverty, and I'm saying, yo, you giving them money and giving them these toys isn't what they want. They want their freedom. They want their culture. They want to live.
Yeah,
where
people
their
should be
ancestors-
able to absolutely have land and not be forced off of their
Property
land.
rights are the fundamental, aspect of freedom. If you don't have property rights, you don't have freedom.
John, thanks for the call. We can continue to discuss property and
now that we got some common ground.
If poor people could actually be, and anybody, let alone poor, but anybody, if they could not be pushed from their own land by governments, that would be amazing. More coming up here. Free Talk Live.
You love Bitcoin. It's the future, right? Well, no, not if everyone stops using it. I mean, think about it. How many places in your town take Bitcoin? One? None? Let's be real. If this Bitcoin thing is ever going to happen,